the Not Old Better Show on radio and podcast. The show covering all things health, wellness, culture, and more. The show for all of us who aren't old, we're better. Each week, we'll interview superstars, experts, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things, all related to this wonderful experience of getting better, not older. Now, here's your host, the award-winning Paul Vogelzang.
Thank you. You know, as that familiar surf music plays underneath everything that we're doing right now, you might find yourself reflecting on love. What it meant in your youth, what it looks like now, and how much of it we're still capable of giving and receiving. I'm Paul Vogelzang. Welcome to the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Fitbod, your personalized strength plan. Today's guest reminds us that love, intimacy, and desire aren't reserved for the young. They're very much alive in midlife and often more powerful than ever. Our guest today is author Kimber Hardick, who's an author of a wonderful new book. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this idea of going from invisible to invincible with Kimber. She's a speaker. She's a surfer. She's a midlife empowerment guide. In her book, An Invitation to Shine, Kimber Hardick shares her personal story of transformation, navigating divorce in her 50s, healing from a severe autoimmune condition, and rewriting everything she believed about womanhood, desire, and worth. Kimber Hardick speaks directly to women, directly to our audience, many of whom are starting over after divorce, redefining life after caregiving, or simply tired of feeling invisible. Kimber Hardick's work is a bold, refreshing call to stop performing and start living with presence, truth, and joy. We will talk today with Kimber Hardick about dating after 50, sexual confidence, rewriting our old stories, and why Kimber Hardick says our second half of life might just be the truest one yet. You don't want to miss this. Stay with us. Our conversation with Kimber Hardick starts right now on the Not Old Better Show on radio and podcast. Again, I'm Paul Vogelzang. Join us. Kimber Hardick, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we are speaking on a Monday, and it's a nice way to start off the week. And you and I were talking a little bit. I think our conversation's a good way to start off the year. We're going to talk kind of this idea that you have about reclaiming intimacy, reclaiming some confidence, and what you like to call authentic living after 50. I think those are all just wonderful topics this year. Congratulations on everything you do, especially your new book, An Invitation to Shine. We'll talk about that, but welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. And so, again, the title of the book is An Invitation to Shine. I love that. It really is something that encourages women to move from this idea of invisible, and we hear that a lot. You know, I'm over 50, I'm just invisible. But you encourage people to move from the invisible to the invincible. And I think that's very powerful. What is the shift? What does that shift mean to you personally, especially in kind of the second half of life that we're all living?
Yeah. So the book is an invitation to shine from invisible to invincible, and that piece is important, I think, as the subtitle. And when I say invincible, I don't mean loud, obnoxious, in your face. It's more about seeing yourself and not relying on others to validate your experience, to give you value. And I've heard a lot of women talk about, I feel so invincible at this age, as though they're looking outside of themselves for people to recognize and to see them. And I believe by stepping from invisible to invincible, it's more about self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about knowing your value, not looking outside of yourself for that. And I also want to add, when I say, because there are some women that love being invisible. They feel safe being invisible.
Mm-hmm.
And this invisibility is not like I say, putting yourself out there, being all sexy and having the cat calls and that sort of invincibility, or getting over that type of invisibility so that you are seen that way. It really is how you see yourself.
Hmm.
And I feel like oftentimes we kind of, especially as moms and wives and young women, we censor ourselves to be liked, to be accepted, to fit in, and all those things that we do in order to fit in, not cause a scene, not rock the boat. We're slowly making ourselves more and more invisible. So the invincibility piece is really about being true to yourself.
I like that. Thank you very much for that. And so this idea of being true to yourself, it really comes as a certain amount of rediscovery. You say, especially during these moments when invisibility can happen through some divorce, perhaps retirement brings on this invisibility. Health challenges bring on some of this invisibility.
It's hard to say
How
sometimes, isn't it?
it's a great line. I wanna make sure I get this out properly. Invisible to invincible, and so I'll say that over and over again for
Yeah.
us, today too, just to make sure I've got that right. So, how do women particularly rebuild this idea of kind of invincibility after some of these things take place? In particular, kind of with regard to their bodies and their desires and some emotions.
Yeah, I think there's so much out there that makes us feel like we're wrong, bad, or broken. And we have to get over that because we're not wrong, bad, or broken. We don't need to be fixed. We've been conditioned to believe so many things about ourselves and how we should show up, to be skinny, to be, beautiful, to be funny, successful, to be a mother. We have all these constructs that are put on us, and the first step is just recognizing we're more than what those roles and those ideas are. And so I guess for me, it started because I didn't know who I was outside of being a mother, outside of being a wife. I went through divorce when I was in my 50s. I closed my business, and I was like, who am I outside of all these roles? And so it really required me looking honestly at myself and letting go of what I had learned about how I was supposed to be as a 50-year-old, how I was supposed to be as a mother, as a grandmother, as a wife, as a divorcee, as a yogi, as, all those things, because I was trying to live up to an ideal that was not, or an expectation that was not one I signed up for.
Mhm, mhm,
And I spent a lot of time trying not to disappoint people. And what I realized is their disappointment really had nothing to do with me, but all the roles and the expectations they had placed on me. So it just required a lot of, really self um, searching and looking and honoring where I was, a lot of consideration. And probably the biggest thing is curiosity,
mm,
being curious. They say there's that saying, curiosity killed the cat. And I
mm,
read somewhere that the rest of it is something along the lines of curiosity may have killed the cat, but satisfaction brought me back.
mhm.
So by being curious and not judgmental and considerate of myself as I navigated this whole new world of being single and on my own and in my 50s.
Mhm. You have some really wonderful, ways of describing some of this, and I love this term that you use, really a turn of phrase when you talk about unraveling who we
Yeah.
were told to be in order to remember who we are. So, that I think that's powerful in and of itself. So what are some of the first steps that you suggest that someone over 50 can take to really begin that unraveling process?
Learning to listen to myself started with recognizing when my intuition was speaking and when my mind was talking. And I heard someone say the other day, when you're asking in questions, that's not your intuition.
Mm,
When you're speaking in thoughts or ideas, that's more of your intuition. And, I started using that term, forgetting what we learned so we could remember what we forgot, when I was teaching yin yoga, and it was
Mhm.
find ease in our bodies. And has still played true throughout this whole process, because as I'm forgetting what I learned and remembering what I've forgotten, I'm feeling more at ease in my body. And so
Mhm.
learning to listen to my body more, being present in the now, not playing what could happen or worrying about what had happened. And I had a friend who used to say, no field was ever plowed thinking about it. And
Mm.
I used to think, what is she talking about? And, because it's funny when sometimes you hear things, you're not quite ready to hear it. And now I see there's so much wisdom in that statement. And so, um, yeah, forgetting. I guess first you have to identify what you were taught, what you learned about yourself that was not yours. Uh,
Mhm.
the idea of being a grandmother has, for me, many different faces, ways of showing up. The
Mhm.
grandmother that I am is not your typical grandmother. I moved out of the country, away from my grandkids. I have an amazing relationship with my boys. They were just here 2 weeks ago, a couple months ago, and they're 10 and 12. And I got to go surfing with my grandkids and my son. I mean, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Um, but I also have had people say, how can you move away from your kids? How can you move away from your grandkids? And before we moved down here, we lived in a 55 plus community, and there were people that were moving to the area to be near their kids.
Mm.
Well, I've remarried, and my husband moved from New Hampshire to Texas to be near his daughter, and she moved to Arkansas. So it's okay for the kids to move away.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if the parents move away, it's like, oh no. So it just didn't rest well with me. I, raised my 4 children. I loved most every minute of it. I'm not going to say I loved every minute of it because I'd be lying. And they're grown, they're living their lives, and it's time for me to live mine. And so I wanted to look at, well, what does that mean? And moving out of the country sounded like a really fun opportunity, and we did.
Mhm. So tell us where you are now.
I'm in Panama, the country of
Okay.
Panama, in a
Yep.
little community called Playa Venal. And I tell people that Playa Venal gave me my wings. And
Nice.
we recently bought a house in Tulsa to live there part time. And Tulsa is where I grew up,
Okay.
and never thinking I would go back. And it's really been amazing to go back as the woman that I am, not as the woman that I was.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm in Panama. It's pretty fun down here.
Yeah, good. Good. Well, good to hear all of that. And you certainly are an inspiration to get us to this point of unraveling and remembering who we truly are. I think when we remember who we truly are in respect to certain parts of our life, and you talked about your own divorce and remarrying and rekindling, kind of love as an emotion. I want to talk about dating particularly because Valentine's Day is coming up. Dating can bring up lots of vulnerability, um, some issues, perhaps emotional scars, all of those kinds of things. So, give us some advice here too. Perhaps tell us a little bit about what it means to be dating at this kind of side of life, this side of 50, especially for somebody who's re-entering the dating world and feeling kind of some need for self-respect, but uh, challenged finding it.
Yeah, boy, it was a big deal to step back into the dating pool. And
Uh-huh.
first off, on Valentine's Day, it's
Yeah.
just another day, ladies.
Uh-huh.
It's just another day.
Yeah.
We don't celebrate Valentine's Day. And I think, that might be helpful for some of us to just realize it's just another day of the week.
Yeah.
Um, when I got back into the dating world, I did online dating. And what I realized is that when you enter dating after divorce, you tend to revert back to where you were when you were last dating. So I became this
Yeah.
18-year-old in my dating life,
Okay.
and it was horrible. I learned a lot about myself, and
Sure.
this, I went in feeling very needy and craving attention and with a sense of lack. And so I would advise not going into dating with the sense of I must find somebody. I'm nobody without somebody. And so I shifted my perspective, and I wrote there's a whole second chapter of my book is all about my, diving into my sexuality, learning about my desires, learning about who I was as a single woman in my 50s. And I went into dating with this mindset of it being a social experiment.
Hmm.
And so, getting on Tinder, getting on Match, all these different dating sites, I wasn't on there looking for the love of my life. I was it became an experiment. And I always had, and I highlight this, I had a plan. We always met at the same bar. We sat at the bar. The bartender knew what I was doing. We had like a code word. So if things were going
Okay.
south,
Okay.
he knew.
The
And
bartender knew. So you brought the
bartender knew.
bartender into that's smart.
Absolutely. His name was
Very smart.
Christopher.
Mhm.
And he was amazing. And he'd see me come
Yeah.
in and go, "Oh, you're at it again." And I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah. Good.
yeah."
Good
And
for you.
being at
That's
the
very smart.
bar and not in a booth allowed me to have conversation if this one was going south, to talk to whoever was next with me or include them into the conversation. And I could always make an easy getaway from the bar if I needed to. Excuse myself to go to the bathroom and head out the
Sure.
doors. I was very safe. I would send a picture of, the guy that I was meeting, his license plate to, I actually, I didn't get in the car with him. I would meet them there. I would never have them come pick me up. But my friends always knew where I was going and who I was going to be with. And I wasn't always safe when I first started dating because, you can be whoever you want on that dating app, especially when you travel. So I was very fortunate that I didn't have anything's happen. But I think being safe and also not going in with a sense of lack, walking into the room like you belong there. You have something that they want, not that they have something that you want, is very important.
We'll be right back with our interview with Kimber Hardick, but she is a powerful, powerful speaker and author. She does so much. She's a big time surfer. And for those of you listening, maybe you felt that quiet tug, the one that says you're ready to stop asking for permission and start showing up for your own life. We're going to shift gears just a bit now and explore some of the tools Kimber uses with women in her community, real practices that help build trust in ourselves, especially when stepping into dating, intimacy, or simply being seen again. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back with Kimber Hardick, but I want to wish everybody a happy new year, and I want to talk about our sponsor today, Fitbod. Fitbod is a workout routine. Every workout routine, no matter your fitness level, needs variety to be sustainable. And if you're somebody who thrives on progress like I do, those small but steady wins, our sponsor today, Fitbod, is exactly what you need to keep going strong. Personally, my behavioral profile on Fitbod is, no surprise here, the milestone chaser. I thrive when I can see progress stacking up. Each week's small wins fuel my drive for the next one. That's what it says about me on Fitbod. What does it say about you on Fitbod? Check it out. I've learned that seeing consistent progress is what keeps me motivated. With Fitbod, every workout builds on the last. I can look back at my workout streak, see my reps increase, my recovery improve, and that visible progress, it lights a fire under me. Remember, I'm the milestone chaser. Just last week, Fitbod noticed I was recovering faster from leg day, and boom, it nudged me to push a little harder, safely. The app tracks everything, my gains, my rest days, even my favorite lifts, and I love not having to overthink what to do next. It plans it all out for me. For those of us who like our progress to show, the milestone chaser. Fitbod delivers. Whether you've been missing gym time or you hit a plateau, Fitbod has a personalized program for you. Build your fitness habit during the new year and stay 2026 consistent. Level up your workout in the new year. Join Fitbod today to get your personalized workout plan. Get 25% off your subscription or try the app free for 7 days at fitbod.me/NOB. All this will be in our show notes today. You'll find this easily, but that's Fitbod, FITBOD.me/NOB. Fitbod.me/NOB. You're just going to have to check this out. I found some amazing testimonials on Fitbod. One person said, better results than a personal trainer. I've had better results after a few months with Fitbod than a year and a half with a personal trainer and at a fraction of the cost. I can't say enough good things about this app. Check it out for yourself. Get your own behavioral profile like I did. The milestone chaser. Thanks, everybody. Remember, Fitbod. Author Kimber Hardick is our guest today. Kimber Hardick has written the new book titled An Invitation to Shine. We are talking about going from invisible to invincible. Great phrasing here in the book, and talking with Kimber, as well as talking reclaiming intimacy, confidence, and authentic living after age 50. One of the other things that I noticed in my research of you too is this. Well, you have a physical condition and you manage lupus. Maybe update us on that condition. We wish you the very best and healing. But you also talk about chronic diseases in general, the use of plant medicine, and this idea that emotional honesty with ourselves can bring about some physical healing. Great topics.
Yeah. I was diagnosed with lupus about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And before I moved to Panama, I had a spinal stimulator. I was on all sorts of medications, and I could barely get up off the floor without assistance. I was playing pickleball, but it would wipe me out for the day. My joints, the inflammation. I'm a ceramic artist, and my fingers were hurting. it affected everything, but I kept pushing. As long as I was moving, I wasn't hurting. But the minute I stopped, and of course, moving all the time was not sustainable. So we moved down to Panama and met the gentleman whose brother runs a stem cell clinic in Panama City. And I had heard about stem cells for lupus, but I hadn't really looked into it, but this felt like a sign. Well, long story short, we ended up going to Colombia to do stem cells. It's cheaper there.
Okay.
And the gentleman who runs the stem cell clinic, his name is Paul, was like a wealth of information. The one in Panama, they signed you up, but you didn't talk to anybody. This guy, Paul, was just giving me all sorts of information. So I was sitting there getting ready to receive my stem cells, and the doctor in Colombia said, do you know what the emotion is behind lupus? And I was like, no, I hadn't really even thought about it, which is funny because I'm all about, emotions and feeling emotions. And so he said it was guilt. And I was like, that's interesting. So I started really diving into guilt. And I'd read a book by Glennon Doyle, how she talked about how we're conditioned to believe that in order to be a good mother, a good wife, a good daughter, we have to behave and be a certain way. And I wasn't being that certain way. Plus, I think women are predisposed to a guilty conscience, also Catholic upbringing and all of that. And so I really started working with plant medicine more down here. I've been doing it for 10 years off and on, but down here it was a lot. And what I realized is I had a lot of emotions, a lot of things that I was carrying around that were not mine, and it didn't have any place to go, and it was being stored in my body. And after about a year after the stem cells, I realized that my stimulator was actually causing me, I had turned it off, but it was causing me more pain than I think just being there. So I went and I had it taken out.
Interesting.
It was like my body
Interesting.
was going, "No, this isn't supposed to be here. You're
Yeah.
removing all
We don't
you're
need this.
removing all these other things that don't belong here, and yet you've
Yeah.
got this thing in here." So I had that taken out,
Hmm.
and my pain level is probably about 95% what it was.
Hmm.
And I
Wow.
also realized I was using my pain as a way to keep me from shining. And my pain was a lovely excuse to say, "Oh, I can't do that. I'm hurting." So it almost kind of became this. It's not that the pain wasn't there, but I was using it. And so as the pain left, I had to grieve the fact that the pain was gone, as well as that I no longer had it as an excuse. And also then dive into the guilt around that of how I had used my pain to prevent me from showing up sometimes. So, each time I go into these medicine journeys, something new arises, some new um, awareness. I don't keep digging for dirt, because if you keep digging for dirt, you're going to find dirt, So, and I was digging for a while. And now I'm just learning how to notice what is mine, what's not mine, what am I carrying? I'm feeling responsible for my husband feeling this way or my children feeling that way. And I'm not responsible for how anybody feels. And so as I
Mm.
kind of just started going through the process of letting go, and I even had the very first podcast I did was with a friend of mine in Fort Worth, and she'd been seeing me on social media. She was like, "I don't know what you're doing, but you look different. It's like the inflammation is gone, you're showing up differently." And so it was very apparent to other people emotionally and physically. And I don't find that I try to make myself small in uncomfortable situations. I'm learning how to make
Mhm.
space in my body, in my mind, in my life, and it all shows up in the body. The body knows before the mind
Mhm.
does. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, it leads me to another too, and so as we talk about the body, as we talk about, the emotions surrounding the body, some of the feelings, I wanna talk to you about sex because you write about it in the, kind of the second half of your book and relationships and all of these kinds of things, and so let me just ask the question, how do women over 50 reconnect with their desire? That's a big part of all of this, not necessarily just for a partner, but for themselves. And what
Yeah.
what shifts in all of us, I think, when we start, kind of thinking about those feelings and we stop performing? Because I like the way you put that too.
I'm glad you asked that. I think what shifted for me was I used to go to the cadaver labs with Gil Headley, and he would dive into some really deep, heavy stuff, and he was telling us how the only job of the clitoris is that of pleasure. It's its only job. And I also have worked with women who I feel sometimes they are denying themselves pleasure by saying no, and they also don't know what they want. So getting, in touch with my body, I went through some trainings on sacred sexuality. I met with a tantra practitioner. I had an oming session, and what I realized is, my upbringing around sex was always to reach that plateau, to finish, to climax. And when we get to that climax, it's over. And also not giving myself permission to just be in pleasure. And as I started kind of playing around with that and allowing myself to just be in pleasure and not have to worry what the other person, was thinking or needing. I mean, their time would come, but right now is my time, giving myself time. And I didn't know if I should share this or not, but I'm going to. During that time, as I was exploring my sexuality, I had never been with a woman ever. And I had a friend who was very open sexually, and she had and she, and so we had an experience together. I didn't know what to do with her vagina. And I have one. And I thought, And these men, we've got to be able to know what we want in order to tell you what we want. But we can't tell anybody what we want if we don't know. So I would say starting with your own pleasure, what feels good. Get curious. Once again, get curious. There's so much education out there now, not the porn on the videos and whatnot, but there are teachers out there that are really teaching um, pleasure and embodiment of pleasure and getting to know your yoni and exploring what feels good and get a vibrator, explore and have fun.
Thank you. Thanks for being candid. I so appreciate it. It really does
Yeah.
matter, and I can just hear in your voice the honesty just comes through. You were honest with us a few minutes ago about surfing with your son and your grandson, and I want to ask you just a little bit about surfing because as I was doing my research of you, that just jumped right out at me. I love the idea of you out there on the ocean, kind of just changing what aging looks like. The waves can be very intimidating. They can be quite big. So I'm sure you had to go through some kind of some physical change and certainly some emotional change in order to kind of do that. Tell us a little bit about what surfing means to you and kind of how you came to it.
Well, surfing it's almost like surfing has become the glue of all the work that I do because I go out on the
Yeah.
water and whatever I might be dealing with on land or writing about, man, the ocean just shows up in a way that, I'm like, okay, I get it. Um, I tried surfing over 10 years ago and I couldn't surf. I couldn't pop up. So I would just write on
Mm,
my knees and my hands and I just thought, well, surfing's just not for me. And I was a yoga teacher back then. Um,
mm,
and I don't know, because I live in a surf community, I was like, gotta at least
mhm,
try it. And my surf instructor,
mhm.
Anita, is the Russian gold medalist of Russia,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
And so in
In
Panama.
Panama. Oh my gosh.
So
Wow. You just
yeah.
fell in.
So I
Yeah.
called her and her partner Jasmine, and what I love about her is she helped me get over all of my fears, because I went in with a lot of fears. I was afraid of the stingrays, so you shuffle.
Uh-huh.
I was afraid of getting
Mhm.
caught in the waves and tumbling, and so she would take me out right in the middle of the break where the wave would just crash on me, and over and over and over again, so I could know that I'm safe, it's gonna pass, this isn't gonna last forever. And what is today? Monday? So Friday, we were
Mhm.
out, and they were the biggest waves I've ever surfed. And we were getting slammed and it was so fun. And what I noticed is if my timing was just right, I would go under and this big old wave's coming. I didn't feel a thing. I just let the wave move over me. I didn't fight it. I didn't resist it. I didn't, run from it. And so but I'm much more flexible these days, and I think it's because of the
Mhm.
emotional work that I've been doing, not, because I don't
Mhm.
do yoga anymore, and so, yeah, it's been fun. I still go out with her. I've been taking lessons for over a year, and
Yeah.
then I have another, young woman that goes out with me. I call her my surf caddy. She carries the board out for me, but it's really I think probably besides learning about emotions, and I teach this course called Riding the Waves of Emotion. I've
Mhm.
been on learning
Mhm.
to honor my capacity, and when I go out to go surfing, I have to honor my capacity, and so I do an
Mm.
intake on my mindset, my body set, my physical set, the environment set, all the things that could possibly affect what I'm, what my intention is gonna be, and so I set an intention not based on what I wish my capacity was, but what my capacity is today, and then I go out and I surf, and then I do kind of integrate from the process, okay, what can I do better? For me, surfing is the first thing I've done that I haven't felt I had to be perfect at. And so
Mm.
each time I go out, I pick a different, um, skill to focus on. And so this last time, my skill was to have a wider stance from my pop up. I never really caught a wave, but I was able to get the wider stance. And so when I go out next time,
Mm.
it's gonna be to turn my feet. So Um, I think a lot of times we set our intentions based on the capacity that we want, not the capacity that
Mhm.
we have. And surfing has taught me that if I want to feel successful and not beat myself up, I can't expect I'm going to go out there and catch that 6-foot wave. I have to honor the capacity I have for the day. And it might be just surfing the foam, it might be catching a small green wave, or it might be going out further and catching one of the really big ones. And so my capacity changes from day to day. And so I think that's probably the biggest lesson, that and the fact that when I'm out there on the board, I have to be fully present. And I can't
Yeah.
be, you know,
Right.
getting my feelings hurt if the wave passes by me or ruminating about what someone said, or I really have to be present. And one of my favorite things to do is to get out past the break and just sit on my board and just be. I mean, to me, that is a real surfer. I'm out there sitting on my board, waiting for the next wave that's got my name on it, and just getting in touch with the water, seeing the fish, the birds, whatever. So, yeah, surfing has been a lot of fun. I'm really turning it into a lot of my teaching and my shares. I'm working with in my women's groups and online classes, and so yeah, it's been a wonderful, and I love it. I love it. It lights me up, and it wears me out.
Yeah. Well, it's been pretty great talking to you. We sure appreciate all of this. Thank you so much again. Just a pleasure to talk with you. Of course, our guest is Kimber Hardick, author of the wonderful book, An Invitation to Shine, talking an awful lot about the subject of reclaiming intimacy, reclaiming confidence, and authentic living after the age of 50. We'll have links so that our audience can find out more information about Kimber Hardick, her courses, her classes that she teaches, especially on capacity. I think that's a great idea. I love all of this that you're talking about. I love the idea of surfing, but importantly, I think this idea of, victimhood is strong with our audience, and you've really reminded us about all of that. Kimber, thank you so much for joining us today. I'll just say this selfishly, please come back. Talk to us again. I know our audience is going to be, yeah.
Love to.
Good. Well, have a great rest of your day.
I would be honored.
That would be wonderful. And if you're going to go surfing today, have a great surf. Take them.
All right.
Thanks, Kimber.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
What a thoughtful, honest, and needed conversation with author Kimber Hardick. Remember, today's episode is brought to you by Fitbod, your personalized strength plan. Kimber Hardick's reminder today fits right in, that it's never too late to reclaim your light, your voice, your fitness, and your joy, especially in the second half of life. It's something that we can all take to heart. If today's episode resonated with you, you can learn more about Kimber Hardick, her work, her book, An Invitation to Shine, and her community of women at kimberhardick.com. This will all be in our show notes today, and you'll find more conversations like this. Just visit us online at notoldbetter.com, where you can listen to all of our previous episodes, Smithsonian episodes, Hearst, Prevention, Good Housekeeping, and explore stories that matter to you and your family. We're also on social media. Join us on Twitter at notoldbetter and Instagram at notoldbetter for updates, behind the scenes moments, and guest highlights. This is a production of NLBS Studios. I'm Paul Vogelzang. Thanks for spending time with us today. Please be well, be safe. Let's talk about better. The Not Old Better Show on radio and podcast. I hope you'll join us again next time. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.